All right, well, hello and welcome. Great to see so many people here. I appreciate it. Thank you. Passing around a sign-up sheet. Please make sure everybody signs up so you can send suggestions as to what our next film will be for January. So I'm Ed Katz. Definitely see some new faces here and a lot of familiar ones, which is great. I was one of my majors at college at Syracuse was film. And I've been doing theater and film reviews for a radio station in Connecticut for the past recently, but also for a couple of years every week until we moved to Florida about 6 years ago. Please, if you're on Facebook, follow me on katzreviews.com on Facebook and also on X or Twitter. Now I want to get into the movie today, which is Martha, the documentary. First, curious, how many people liked it? Show of hands. Okay, almost everybody. Any so-so? Oh, we got a handful of that. All right. Anyone did not like it? Thumbs down. Anyone? Okay. All right. So most people liked it. About 3/4 liked it, and maybe a quarter, maybe even less, who thought it was so-so. Okay. So, all right. Let's start with someone who did like it. What did you like the most about it? Someone discuss that? Yes, go ahead, Amy.
She is such a fighter, after finding out what she went through, how really awful her father was, but she still gave him a lot of praise and did teach her about gardening, and then her marriage, and really being wrongly accused of insider trading and going to jail and making the best of that situation. She's like a phoenix, rising
That's
from
right.
the ashes all the time. And I was really emotional listening to her. She's just keeps plowing on, and her whole goal in life is to make people's lives beautiful and nice. And, and she was, chastised for being a bitch and mean. And it's like,
You think she was a good person? You think she was a good person?
yeah. What I think is that if it was a male, there would be no question about his behavior.
Okay, I think I want to address the gender issue, fair or not, in a minute. Yes.
Well, I think there's a difference between liking the documentary and liking her.
Yeah.
I
Great.
didn't like
Yep.
her going in, and I didn't like her coming out. So
Okay.
it didn't change my opinion. I felt that, yes, I agree that there were things that she went through that maybe a male would not have gone through. But she was similar to her father in many ways.
Yep.
And I don't like that personality, so I can't like her.
Right. Bart.
I want to address the film and not the person.
Right.
Because obviously there's people who love her, hate her, and through the movie, you either change your opinion or it increased your opinion. But I think as a movie, the fact that we all can say, well, I loved her, I hate her after, it's like, that's a good movie. Yeah. And it was beautifully edited. It was beautiful. Everything about it was just moved. You were never bored for a moment. And you were engaged with her, with everything around her. And I think it was a beautifully done craft.
She wasn't happy with it.
She wasn't happy. We'll discuss that soon. Absolutely. She wasn't happy with the last half of the movie.
Exactly.
Right. But we'll discuss that. Yes, Anne.
Well, I guess this is more about her than the movie, but the movie certainly portrayed it about her empowering women. Usually being a homemaker is not a prideful thing, and she made it into a very special career. I mean, for women,
Right.
not,
I
gardening,
Yeah.
cooking, having a beautiful home. I mean, that's not usually a respected trait. And I think that she did that for women, no matter what their socioeconomic place was, I thought was amazing.
I agree with you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, she set the bar so high for those things, for cooking, for how your house is. So ironically, she was trying to make us feel good about what we make her. But there was a little bit of a a sense that I'm not measuring up. And I think a lot of people felt that.
Okay, and that's, one second, and that's fair, but also she set that bar for herself because she was always trying to be perfectly perfect, right? Right. And she demanded that from anyone who worked for her or with her.
That's true.
Right.
It's consistent.
Right, that's right. At least you got to give her that. Yes,
Yeah.
Duffy.
Well, to Sue's point, and what Anne said, yes, the homemaker role was embellished, and I think part of the reason she was persecuted is because she did cause other people women to feel diminished. Because what she kept saying in the documentary of, oh, I just, it's simple, it's easy. I never saw any of her information, instructions,
I don't
simple or
think that's why
easy.
she was persecuted. Because
So
men were the ones who
may I
persecuted her.
just finish? Yeah, okay. So, and what happened was when, in the 50s, the homemaker role was totally embellished and then we had the modern technology, the household items, and women didn't have enough to do. When Johnny came marching home and Rosie the Riveter had to go home and she didn't go to work anymore, it was way too much and women were bored. And then the women's movement came along and that changed everything. But she kind of brought back that 50s thing, but with a modern twist, which was absolutely elegant and beautiful. And she did have a very harsh, exacting father and a mother who never hugged her and who wasn't into being a mother. So you put that together and she did not follow female norms. And that's why she was so disliked, because she wasn't warm and fuzzy, even though she was a homemaker, commercial, professional homemaker. So that's kind of ironic.
But there's a difference between fuzzy and warm and nasty. And she was borders on nasty for me.
She was a
Okay.
businesswoman.
Yeah.
No, there were business women who were not nasty. I mean, I can't use that as an excuse. I can't.
Spencer?
The arrogance of her with stating that her affair was nothing. And had a man done the same thing, it would have been quite catastrophic. And
But what did she say about her husband's affairs?
Yeah.
oh yeah, well she didn't like that.
Right.
She didn't like that.
She thought they were
Right,
unforgivable.
unforgivable.
Right.
But hers was okay.
Right.
So
That was interesting.
And that was an irritating part of her.
mhm.
The justice system in this country is, this just showed me, I mean, had one of us here done the same thing that she did, would they go to a prison where they're mowing the grass and they have a garden, that she can go into and procure? I think we would have been in jail. I mean, as an actual.
Yeah, I want to cover the jail thing a little later because that's a whole other part of this story.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's,
Right.
different level.
Right. Okay. Yes, David.
I thought she was extraordinarily bright, and I thought simultaneously she was able to monetize the homemaker's role in a way that no one had seen before, and she did it with taste and in a way that gave people opportunity to follow. But she was very manipulative in that sense, and I think you'll deal with the jail thing, but I think the question, I don't think anybody else who had done that would have gone to jail. She was so disliked. That's why she went to jail. I don't think she did anything so wrong.
Okay. I still want to hold off on the jail thing, but okay.
Her fall from grace was one of the best parts of the movie, and her comeback was unbelievable. That roast was really a treat. And her relationship with Snoop Dogg, I have to say, nothing like for her to be smoking dope and screwing the Snoop Dogg. What a good story.
Right. Yes.
I thought that I loved the movie. I have mixed feelings about her, but there were parts of the movie I felt like I was reading one of those tabloid rags in the supermarket checkout.
Right.
The way she was telling her story.
Wait,
It's
the way
sort of-
she was telling her story or the way the filmmaker was telling the story?
Shit, I don't remember now. But it felt that way. to
Okay.
me, And it cheapened it a bit for me.
Well, hang on a sec. And I understand your comment, and I think it's a fair comment. But I also think because her personality is so larger than life, it's fair that the movie did have a little of that to it. Because I don't know if there was a way for it to avoid it,
Perhaps-
given her outsized personality.
perhaps not, yeah.
So, okay. Did anyone who had mixed feelings, you want to share the reason for that? Yes, sir.
I think for her, we're sort of neutral going in, I didn't follow her. But I thought in the beginning, her business model was something that was unattainable for the average person. Felt she was arrogant about it. And about halfway through the movie, I said, I've had enough of her. And I didn't care anymore.
Okay, well,
I also
1 second.
have a comment about her criminal
I want-
situation.
I want-
but I'll
we can
hold
get to that
I
later.
wanna talk
Yep.
about it.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
well, she didn't build a billion-dollar empire because people were not buying into her. People bought her magazines, they bought her merchandise at Kmart or wherever it was.
Yep, and her books, all
And
her
her
books.
books, I have some of her books.
Sure.
Obviously, there was a demand for it. Because she could not have built up this empire if there were no buyers.
Nobody's disputing her business acumen. Yeah.
Right, so, but what I'm saying is, I think a lot of people really appreciated what she was putting out there in the universe.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think there's a difference in a woman's opinion and a man's, how a man comes to this and how a woman does. And I think that showed when she went to jail and she got more involved. I don't think a man would have been treated the way she was treated.
And so she had to kind of be
Yeah,
extra
tough.
tough. Because, you know, many times she was like, when she decided to become a stockbroker on the New York Stock Exchange, but she was one of the only
She had to
women.
fight her way.
Right. She was the only woman in all these men.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Okay,
So, she had to have that tough exterior.
right. Ruth?
What did her husband do?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, he had a small publishing company, that's
I
right.
don't think it was a small publisher, I think it was a big publisher,
It was a very big.
and that's where she got her start.
Well, okay, but it wasn't her husband's idea for her to start
No,
doing.
but that's where she was able to get going through him,
Well, lucky
and
for
she
her.
used every bit of it.
If I remember right, he came from money anyway, but he had a publishing company that wasn't like it was his,
And
he
her
inherited money.
father-in-law was stockbroker.
Yeah, her father-in-law was in the finance world, right?
He got her.
Okay. I wanted to do a little bit on the background of the director and who also got a writing credit for R.J. Cutler. Anyone familiar with him and stuff he's done?
No.
Okay, I bet you've seen at least some of his movies. Did anyone see The War Room? It's a documentary on the Clinton campaign. It really was the movie that launched George Stephanopoulos' career and got him the morning show. The War Room, yeah. And also it made James Carville brought him to national prominence. People who were on the inside of politics already knew who those guys were, but the general public did not until that movie came out and really showcased how skilled they were at the campaign world. He also did A Perfect Candidate, which was about Oliver North. He did the September issue, which was about Anna Wintour, and The World According to Dick Cheney. He did that as well. And he was also was a Broadway producer before he even started with the films. But he's got he was a Harvard graduate, grew up in Great Neck, Long Island. A decorated student, went to University of Southern California School of Theater and also the cinema and film. Oh yeah, okay. He also made Belushi, the movie about John Belushi, and Billie Eilish, documentary on her called The World's a Little Blurry, and coming out later this either this year or next year, Elton John, Never Too Late, documentary on Elton John. So he's done a lot. So I just thought, you know, there's a whole, I mean, I couldn't believe how long his bio was. This guy, if you want to just get a kick out of something, Google him and look up his Wikipedia bio. It's incredible. There's so many things he's done.
What's his name?
R.J. Cutler. R.J. Cutler. Okay, now as to the movie and Martha and her opinion of it, well, first I want to get to something else. So there was a debate that the New York Times kind of brought up and had a thing about when the movie first came out. Said, and the article was titled, "Martha Stokes a Debate. What's a documentary anyway?" And the argument was, you know, if you're making a documentary on a person with their participation in the production, is that really a documentary? So it was fascinating, and he was asked about it as well, and she was asked about it, and they had very, very different answers, as you might imagine. So the Times article said, real documentaries shine a light on the overlooked and the underprivileged. Real documentarians nudge the world forward. Real documentarians don't get rich. At least that is what purists will tell you. This movie, by the way, was made on a budget of $18 million, which for a documentary is about 18 times what most documentaries are made of. So he's on a different level, but it was basically commissioned by Netflix. So he had a waiting audience anyway, and he's done that before. The Dick Cheney movie was for Showtime, and he's had others as well. So he considers himself a verite filmmaker, which is, you know, real life. Okay, he also did one on e-cigarettes called Big Vape, The Rise and Fall of Juul. He was nominated for an Oscar. He's won 3 Emmys, including one for something called American High, that was a documentary series that tracked 14 high school students over the course of a year. Okay, he's also done one on Marlon Brando, but I don't see the name of it here. So anyway, are these documentaries? Aren't they films which are frequently sought out by celebrities, closer to being glamour shots? So how honest can you really be? That was asked by the former president of HBO Documentaries, Sheila Nevins. These famous people are all very involved in the making of their films. So is the result a biography or an autobiography? Is it a sellout or just a different form? Cutler, who now is 63, just to give you an idea, he said celebrity falls into the latter category, just a different form. He maintains celebrity films can be every bit as serious, noting that subjects, at least in his movies, don't call the shots. The lens, figuratively and literally, is mine, he said. Apple TV paid him an estimated $27 million, well, not just him, but for the production of his Billie Eilish documentary. Disney commissioned the one for Elton John, $32 million for that budget. Okay.
Do the subjects in any of that money? Do they get paid to have a movie made about
That's
them?
not discussed. I gotta think yes. I gotta think yes, but I don't know. But it's a very good question. I didn't see anything about that. So Mr. Cutler said, we believe documentary can work as popular entertainment and say something about the world at the same time. We're artists who want to impact people's lives. As for the ethical debate, how honest can you be with celebrity subjects? Should a spouse be co-directing, for example, which I think was the case with the Elton John documentary, and that Elton John's spouse was involved in the production heavily. Mr. Cutler said he understood why those questions got asked, but he also seemed puzzled as to why he would need to explain himself. I'm a contractual final cut filmmaker. What that means is he gets the final cut of the films. Nobody else. It's all his decision. That was part of Martha Stewart's beef with him. And it says here, she discovered as much. When she agreed to be one of his subjects, she was expecting a collaboration. Instead, she said, he mostly vetoed her requests for changes to Martha. She said, we had pages and pages of notes for him, and maybe 4% of those suggested changes were actually made. I've collaborated on thousands of products and magazines and TV shows, fabulous designers and writers and photographers, and this is the first showdown I have ever had on a creative project. A handout image shows Martha Stewart being filmed for the doc. Okay. When she worked with Mr. Cutler, she said, the lack of communication was glaring. She met with several potential filmmakers after deciding to pursue a documentary. And one exploratory discussion with Mr. Cutler took place in her Manhattan office. I made chicken salad, she said. He was working on Billie Eilish, which I thought was cool. The more Mr. Cutler learned about Miss Stewart's life, the more interested he became. Quote, it's an incredible story, the first self-made female billionaire in American history, for crying out loud. And yet she is a very complex character filled with conflicts and contradictions. They signed a contract in May 2022. And according to Miss Stewart, it included, quote, a collaboration clause, unquote. She did say, while he has final control of the picture, she said, reading from the contract, he is obligated to meaningfully consult with you with respect to the development, production, distribution, and exploitation of the picture, and to keep you meaningfully and promptly informed of any and all material updates. Ms. Stewart said Mr. Cutler had not complied. The lack of communication was glaring. I didn't work like that. I don't keep people in the dark. She said her deal entitles her to, quote, share in the profits of the film. And that she said she is, quote, waiting for an accounting. I'm a businesswoman. I have good lawyers. Now, Mr. Cutler declined to comment on the finances. As for the contract, he said he had shown work in progress cuts to her 3 or 4 times and engaged in thoughtful conversations with her and her team about it. But he said there was no such thing as a collaboration clause. What she had in her contract, it's the same thing as in all our contracts, he said. I'll show you the film. You'll tell me what you think. I'll tell you how I'm responding. You'll tell me again what you think. I'll tell you again how I'm responding. And that will be that. The final editing decisions are mine. He said, you've got to start from a position of empathy and responsibility. They have trusted you with their story. It may be difficult for them to see aspects of it. Now, on the Elton John one, I want to find the quote if I can, because, okay, here it is. David Furnish, who's Elton John's husband, said, I'm really happy with how the film came out. In a very natural, non-confrontational way, we're sending a very positive, life-affirming message about domestic happiness, whoever you are. Okay, so that's that. Now, his Cutler's business partner said, we're never going to make a film about something we don't love just because it's going to sell, because it's too hard. That. Okay, now, Martha Stewart and what she complained about. I think that's important. Let's see where to start this for you. Okay, most of the film, there's more fruitful tension than blind celebration. This is from the New York Times article. Stewart makes for a prickly interviewee, especially when she's talking about something she's not interested in discussing in depth, her first marriage, for instance, or the subject of feelings in relationships. And then another interesting thing that from a filmmaking standpoint, I thought was fascinating. The other people that were interviewed for the film, you never saw them. Never saw them. You heard their voices, you saw a title saying that they were there, but R.J. Cutler didn't want to have cutaways to show them being interviewed. That wasn't his point. They were adding background. He made it very clear by not actually showing them in the film, which was a unique way to do it. He did include a little of her daughter Alexis, but barely, barely. Okay, now, well, okay, more interesting, yet about the jail thing. More interesting is Stewart herself, who doesn't hold back in the film. It's bracing and a little startling, given the sanded off edges that a lot of well-known people present to the public. She remarks quite seriously, for instance, that James B. Comey and the other prosecutors responsible for imprisoning her for 5 months, quote, should have been put in a Cuisinart and turned on high. Right? I mean, stunning for someone to say that, right? She has very little patience when discussing people who react negatively to her efficient, exacting professional perfectionism. She minces no words in talking about the men who left her. She has choice words for colleagues who crossed her. And the reviewer, Alyssa Wilkinson, said, it's refreshing. Her candor and sharpness make for a much better, far more believable film. This is a woman who feels wrongs and moves relentlessly forward, but never forgets. Martha feels like a far more comprehensible key to Stewart, Martha meaning the movie, who has been the subject of speculation, fascination, jokes that turn cruel, and plenty of schadenfreude than half a century of media attention has managed to find. Okay, I think that's all very fair. Anyone have any questions or want discussion? Okay.
And the interviewer was Cutler, right?
Yes, RJ Cutler was the one asking her the questions off
He was-
camera.
So kind of hostile. I got the impression.
You
that,
thought he was hostile. I thought he was,
I thought he was very challenging.
I thought he was objective.
He was very challenging to the point there was a real edge to him in some of those questions. I
Okay,
thought.
I'll disagree with you. I appreciate you saying that. I disagree, but I'll tell you what. When he was asking her about her marriage and when that kind of fell apart and she started saying that, well, he cheated, first. She said that, remember? And he countered and he said, well, according to him, but I didn't think he said it hostilely. He was presenting the information, I thought, as fairly as he could, especially given her notorious temper, that he was sort of paying it delicately, but he stated it plainly and had the camera on her without a cut. So she would answer that question when he gave it to her. So, and he did that a couple times about the jail too.
He was hostile towards her.
No, I didn't either. Okay.
I thought the only time somebody was hostile when there was that clip about her doing a TV show and she was supposed to be making a salad and she was being asked a question.
Right.
And she's like, I just want to make my salad.
Right.
It was like, this is not the appropriate time to start asking. You've invited her to your show to demonstrate how to make a salad. I thought it was really unfair to start asking her about something.
Okay. Fair point, and I know Anne felt the same way because when we watched it, she was saying this woman's harassing her. The reporter, and I get it. But I also know if you're that reporter, you've got a job to do. She's about to get a jail sentence. You don't know what it is. You've got to ask the question. Now, did she go a little too much? Maybe, but she had asked the question as a journalist.
Makes for good television.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
But I also thought a little glimpse into how she cares about women. When she left that prison, she was wearing a poncho that was made by one of the women in the prison.
Right.
And she gave props
Yep.
to this incarcerated woman's talents.
Yep.
And I
Good
thought
point.
that was wonderful.
Yeah, but then she gave the poncho to her dog or whatever. That's
No,
what
she
they-
did not.
And
No, she did not. She had her television show. Everybody in the audience got
Got one,
one
right.
of those
That's right.
ponchos.
Yep.
Yeah.
She didn't give it to her dog.
No, no, I didn't remember that.
There
was something.
Right.
The woman made a miniature version for the dog.
Right,
But
that's what I remember,
she
yeah.
walked out
Yep.
with that beautiful poncho
Yep,
proud.
yep.
And I thought it was a really beautiful thing that she, brought this woman who's incarcerated, unable to get out there. And like, look what this woman who's in prison is capable of doing.
Right.
Jam time did her good.
Yes, in the back.
Did her good. And then she became a supportive person through that. You can see it like afterwards.
Right. Like she had, cucumber sandwiches for the women in prison. I mean, she just, she wanted to even make the lives of the women in prison better.
Right.
She never gave up that desire to make life beautiful for no matter where you are.
Bernie Madoff with me.
So you're taking hands, Ed? You're taking hands?
Yes, in the back.
Say that I've been at a bridal shower with her, and she was most concerned about the bride, that she not take any attention from. She wanted to have a very low profile, and she felt that the bride was the one who needed spotlight. So she was really wonderful. She stayed away from everybody. She would, get involved with them. She would chat with them about what she's been through or what she's up to. And she was also at the wedding, and she did the same thing at the wedding. She had fun, she danced, but she was not making herself a spectacle or the center of attention.
That's great. That's interesting. Wow.
Okay, so Anne and I have had a couple of semi-close encounters with Martha Stewart in real life. A long time ago. But we have friends from when we were in Westport, where she lived, and we know exactly where she lived. We have friends who are down the street from her. Which she talks about the Turkey Hill Roadhouse. You know, we've been on that street many times because we were at our friend's house there. So these friends, not the ones in that house, but others who lived in there, got married many, many years ago. She catered their wedding. So when our friends told us that, I said, Emily, you know, what was she like? And she laughed. She goes, oh, she was a total bitch. She goes, but she did a great job.
And that's.
Okay. So I thought that was interesting. And we did see her there was a function. Anne had a nutritionist for many, many years. Martha Stewart had the same nutritionist. He had a holiday party one year and she was there. And to say she was friendly would be dramatically overstating the case. Barely polite is about as nice as I could say how she was.
So we shouldn't aggrandize the fact that you've got to be a bitch in order to do really good work.
Well, that may be the case. I guess that's subject to
People
debate.
do excellent work, and they're collaborative, and they're good leaders, and they care for their people, and people go home being happy rather than being, you know, confronted all day.
Okay.
Do you think there's a gender issue in her? Do you think that as a woman, she has to assert
No.
herself even more?
That's the question, right?
Perhaps that was her, perhaps that was her.
That was her contention. Sure. Yep. Okay.
And her contention was based on her life experience, having to behave that way.
I don't know, I can only buy that up to a certain point. I've known a fair number of women in business who've been marvelous business people.
Yeah.
Some of them came from difficult circumstances, and they were lovely outside of the business relationship. You didn't cross them, they wouldn't be walked on. But
They did their job.
they didn't have that reputation for being rough edge or harsh or being a bitch. They knew how they had to use it in business, but it didn't carry over to the personal.
She has people who still work for her decades later, though.
Yeah.
So I think the people that like Kevin Sharkey, he's been with her for decades.
Mhm.
And he was just recently on a television show with her. So I think that if she felt confident in people, I don't think she treated them badly. I think that, you know, she just has very high standards.
Well, I think her family background brought out her cold perfectionism.
I agree.
And of course, it's the interplay between the genders. Any woman that doesn't follow gender norms, like Barbara Streisand has talked about that, Hillary Clinton, of course. I do think she was basically cold, and I would prefer a good doctor with a bedside manner. So to your point,
There he is.
What was that?
Got bread.
Women have an advantage of being collaborative, and she didn't seem to use that much, but she was successful anyway. She had incredible business prowess.
But yet, okay, so she had this business prowess and she did find a void. Let me say that at the
Yes.
time, there was no one else that was
Absolutely.
doing what she did. And yes, she did find a void, and I give her credit for that. But then when you say she didn't have, the first thing when you were reading about that she was unhappy, that she didn't have say in what this film was, I wrote down question mark contract. I mean, she's a businesswoman. She's done million. It's in the contract or it's not in the contract.
She lost control. That was the whole point.
No,
It's
it
in a
sounded
contract.
like she read it a way where she thought being shown this and being opportunity to give her feedback would give her some control.
Right.
But that's not the case. And when he has final cut, that's the answer right there.
And she has lawyers and she
Sure, but-
signs a contract
Yeah,
without
of
somebody else
course.
looking
Oh,
at
of
it.
course they looked at it. Absolutely.
But-
Right. Yes, sir.
I'd like to get back to a couple of things.
Sure.
The comment about James Comey.
Yeah.
I agree he targeted her the same way he targeted Hillary Clinton.
Yes. Mhm.
And I think he was the cause of her loss of the presidential election, just my opinion, by releasing that letter
Mhm.
10
That was
days
my
before
first thought,
the
too.
actual vote.
Yeah, timing certainly wasn't good for her, no question.
And I think he did it on purpose.
Certainly possible.
But
his own-
secondly,
Where's the Cuisinart when you need it?
I'm a lawyer. I think she did lie to the FBI. I think she probably was guilty.
Well, and right there, hang 1 second. That's what she was found guilty of, not the
Yes.
insider
Oh,
trading.
yeah.
I thought we should clarify that,
She
right?
was
And
found
her
guilty of
lawyers
lying
told her
the
to do that. Her lawyers told her to lie.
That's correct.
And she
Well-
didn't have to listen to them. She shouldn't have, because she would have never
they
been
shouldn't have
guilty
told
of
her that,
anything.
They
Would have
shouldn't
gone
have told
home.
her
Lawyers told her to say, I don't.
They need to be in the Cuisinart too,
And,
her lawyers.
and I think that was a stupid defense.
Right.
But two, I think she went to prison in part because she was a woman.
Yes.
And
Well, I think it
powerful
wasn't
woman.
because she was, I think it's because she was Martha Stewart up on a pedestal. Right.
But I do think she was guilty.
Right, I agree. I think she was guilty, and I think she was made an example of as a warning to other wealthy people. To me, forgetting she was a woman, but maybe, given Comey attacked Hillary, who knows?
Look,
Maybe it was a
the
one
guy-
thing. I don't know.
The stock broker told her to do something.
Right.
Whether it was based on inside information.
Oh, he had insider. He went to jail.
He had
Yeah,
inside
right.
information and went to jail.
Right.
And the president of the company went to jail.
Right.
So she wasn't alone
Nope.
in that event of selling the stock.
Right. The same day that what was his name? Waxall? Yeah, that he sold.
Family.
Right. Yes.
I did not follow the case closely, so I made the assumption that she was guilty. Now, watching the documentary, I was unclear. Thank you for talking about this, because I'm still not clear. It wasn't inside information. It was that she lied, she perjured herself? Is
Correct.
that what it was?
Yep.
The evidence of insider trading was not strong enough to convict her on it
Okay.
because the person that gave her whatever information she gave that caused her to sell the stock would not say he gave her inside information.
Mm.
So the question was, did she lie to the FBI about what happened in that conversation?
Saying she didn't recall.
Saying she didn't recall, which the lawyer told her to do. And having done that under oath, when a jury in the end believed she did recall.
Yep.
And
Well,
therefore,
right.
I mean, she was a perfectionist who remembered everything. The prosecution based their prosecution on the fact that she was a perfectionist, had notes on everything, and it is inconceivable that she didn't.
Wait, there's one more key to that.
was-
Her friend,
A friend
her friend was
friend
testified against her.
that put her.
That said, she said they were out on a boat or something, and she said something to her friend.
But this is ridiculous, getting 5 months in jail she had no record, no history of crime. To go to jail as opposed to probation or
It
something.
was to make an example of her for other wealthy people.
The jail sentence, bear in mind, the jail sentence is up to the judge, not the
Right.
prosecutor.
What,
Right.
what could
And
she
there's
have,
some judge that
she
made
have
that.
said? What could she have said?
That she was told, he told her,
She
what
could
she
have
said the
said-
truth.
He told me to sell the stock.
Right.
I had no reason to disregard that advice.
And she didn't know he
tell
had
me
insider
anything
info.
about why.
Right, that's
And
right.
She would have been acquitted.
Oh, so she didn't need to.
She went to jail for lying. That's
Exactly.
the end of the story. There's nothing else.
And she used to be a stockbroker. She used to be in the financial.
That's right.
Job. She was a financial
was,
analyst in Wall Street, so she
Yeah.
knew.
She was making $250,000 a year in like the 60s or
She knew
something.
exactly what insider trading.
Of course. Yes, Spencer, yes.
Nobody goes to jail for that. Nobody goes to
Spencer, yes.
I still, with this, I believe there's a two-tiered system of justice. Had anyone in this room done the same thing, we would have gone to a different prison than she had. Cutting the grass and, having a garden and what have you, I think is, it's not going to prison. I mean, yes, you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or you have to clean the toilets or what have you. That's,
On a lousy bed.
that's a real slap on.
But she got strip search, she definitely had bad accommodations, so.
Solitary
Jails that are not.
Had you or I gone, would we guys go into that type of prison?
Yeah, of course.
Incarcerated at that facility.
Yeah.
You know, for white collar, for nonviolent crimes. She
Yeah.
wasn't the
First of
only
all,
one in that jail.
Women's prisons are usually not as harsh as men's prisons.
Yeah.
One, two, there are federal prisons.
They
that
have
are-
men's prison the same as the women's prison.
That are.
There's
for
men's
white
prison where
collar
men go for the
criminals that are
same
not
kind of
that
stuff as
harsh.
her. You're getting off the track. There are prisons where men go that the same as a women's prison, just like hers. You think that there's no cupcake men's prisons? Give me a break.
Yeah,
So,
but you have to have money.
Right, okay. All right, I wanna stick to the film now. I wanna stick to the film. All right, so I wanna get to Martha's issues that she had with the film. She called the second half of the film, quote, "a bit lazy." Those last scenes with me looking like a lonely old lady walking hunched over in the garden. Boy, I told him to get rid of those and he refused. I hate those last scenes, hate them. I had ruptured my Achilles tendon. I had to have this hideous operation, and so I was limping a little. But again, he doesn't even mention why, that I can live through that and still work 7 days a week. She called the music lousy. I said to RJ, an essential part of the film is that you play rap music. Dr. Dre will probably score it, or Snoop, or Fredwreck. I want that music. And then he gets some lousy classical score in there, which has nothing to do with me. Cutler added Snoop Dogg's Beautiful to the end credits after she saw an unfinished cut of the film, so he took her suggestion on that. She said he chose unflattering camera angles. He had 3 cameras on me and he chooses to use the ugliest angle. And I told him, don't use that angle. That's not the nicest angle. You had 3 cameras, use the other angle. He would not change that. She argued that what made her magazine special was lost. My magazine, my Martha Stewart magazine, which you might say is traditional, was the most modern home magazine ever created. We had avant-garde photography. Nobody ever showed puff pastry the way I showed it. I can't believe I'm reading this sentence. Or the glossaries of the apples and the chrysanthemums. And we prided ourselves so much on all of that modernism, and he didn't get any of that. And then she said, and where the heck are my grandchildren? There's not even a mention. And these grandchildren are utterly fantastic. My daughter was very against the children being included, but I could have talked about them. And I did. I've taken them to, okay, I don't want to get there. Colorful anecdotes were left out, she said, including how the lawyer Alan Dershowitz used to flirt with her in the 1960s when she was first married. In contrast, she said the documentary spends, quote, way too much time, unquote, on her 2004 trial and prison sentence. Now here she says, okay. Now, do you remember in the movie how she complained it was a harsh being in the prison? You remember that?
Yeah.
Here's her quote to the New York Times. It was not that important. The trial on the actual incarceration was less than 2 years out of an 83-year life. I considered it a vacation, to tell you the truth. The trial itself was extremely boring. Even the judge fell asleep. RJ didn't even put that in. The judge was asleep at the bench. I wrote it in my diary every day. But she says, I love the first half of the documentary. It gets into things many people don't know anything about, which is what I like about it. Specifically, she said about the part when she was on her honeymoon, she left her husband at the hotel and went alone to the Florence Cathedral, becoming so overwhelmed with emotion that she kissed a stranger. She said, quote, I wish we all could experience such an evening. She acknowledged viewers may be more forgiving of the film, focusing more on its ultimate message.
Control.
So many girls have already told me, young women, that watching it gave them a strength they didn't know they had. And that's the thing I like most about the documentary. It really shows a strong woman standing up for herself and living through horror as well as some huge success. That's what I wanted the documentary to be. It shouldn't be me boasting about inner strength and any of that crap. It should be about showing that you can get through life and still be yourself.
Yes, my granddaughter said, Grandma, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie, and I think she softened on it.
That could be,
Oh,
but
really?
she's really focusing on the first half, that she did say she liked that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Did anybody see the movie about her going to prison? Sybil Shepherd played her?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Well, I said they didn't include one thing in the documentary that was in the movie. which was there was a contest around a holiday contest or something of producing some work of art, and they were given a very tiny budget. There were 3 groups. One group could produce nothing. The other group produced like a little mud ginger house. And she taught the women how to do origami. And they had origami birds, origami hanging from the ceiling, the entire ceiling. It was gorgeous. So when it wasn't included in the movie, I didn't know if they just put it in the, when it wasn't included in the documentary, I don't know if they just made it up for the movie. But that was very, very striking how she could make such beauty with so little resources and collaboratively. So I don't know.
What was the name of that, do you know?
No, I'm sure we could find it.
Yeah, if you Google Sybil
Yeah.
Shepherd was in it, I'm
Yeah.
sure Sybil Shepherd, Martha Stewart, you'd be able to find it. Yeah, but I wasn't familiar with it.
Probably called
Good
Martha.
convention.
Marketing is the word.
So the critics overall really liked this movie. It actually set an 89% score, but some of the reviews that it attributed to being negative weren't actually negative. Like one gave it a 6.5 out of 10, and they put like a negative on that. That's not a negative to me. And another was a 3 out of 5, and they called that a negative. That's not a negative. So it's really over a 90% from the critics. One of them, I just read a couple quotes from some of the critics. Stephen Silver said, "What I like about this is it's not pure hagiography, and it was willing to get into uncomfortable subjects like her affairs and breakups." Another one said, "This documentary did that rare thing. It got under the skin of the icon and showed the woman." Another one said, R.J. Cutler delivers a brisk, visually dazzling chronicle of Stewart's dizzying highs and devastating lows. Another one, ultimately, nothing can defeat her, and despite all her flaws, that's a good thing. If anything, one walks away with immense respect for a woman that could have easily let life live her, but instead lived life her way on her own terms. Could you silence that? Okay, thanks. Another one said, "I never looked the other way," she says, and thankfully neither does Cutler's documentary. To its credit, it doesn't pull any punches on the tough side of her. And then another one, Wade Major said, "I thought this was tremendous. It's one thing to make a documentary that's fairly comprehensive about Martha Stewart, but to get her to be revealing about herself, which she does not like to do, is quite an achievement." And I completely agree with that. I thought that was pretty fascinating. Another one said, "It makes no attempts to tenderize her or to arrange her so her prettiest petals touch the light. That's where we're allowed to see her fullness. Through the cracks in the flawless facade, Martha Stewart is living, and that's on period." Okay, any other comments right now? Yes.
It sounds like the reviewers liked it because he left it the way it was, or he left it the way it was rather than taking their comment.
Right, because then it would just be a puff piece, right?
Did she actually have a relationship with Snoop Dogg? They're friends.
It wasn't said. It says they're friends. They both said they're good friends. I don't know if there's anything more.
Yeah,
He's 5 and 9 grandchildren. I mean.
Yeah, he's been married a long time.
He's very impressive. He really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw him at the Olympics. He was all over the Olympics.
He was.
Closing ceremony, right? Closing ceremony. You know, I thought the closing at the end where she's walking in her property and it's fall and all those golden colors of the leaves. It was just really beautiful.
It showed she could control that environment, right?
Her outfit matched.
Well, of course.
the
Yes, I noticed that.
environment.
Yes. The orange jacket,
Yes,
right, yeah.
Outfit matched.
And one of the things I liked was that when they had film or stills that were real, they were used. When they didn't, they had very good artwork.
Yeah.
And I liked the interspersing of the drawings when they didn't have actual movies or stills.
Yep, it's great to have a big budget to make a documentary, frankly. You can do stuff like that, yeah. Okay, so actually, Ann and I know one of the reviewers who, again, they said it was a mixed review. It actually was 6 out of 10 here. Susan Granger from Westport. Her review was, "Martha Stewart is not happy with this callous, self-empowered, spicy documentary, and quite frankly, I don't blame her. The lifestyle guru emerges as a stern, humorless bitch. Is she? I don't know, but writer-director R.J. Cutler does her no favors. But she gave it 6 out of 10, so in spite of that quote, she didn't totally hate it. Now, one of the other ones was, by the end, the movie isn't simply telling her story, it's telling us exactly what we should think of that story. Gave it 2.5 out of 4. I don't think he told us exactly what we should think. I think he showed both sides pretty well. And someone who couldn't be here tonight said to me, that was a film that if you went in liking her or not liking her, you came out feeling the same way because there was enough of both sides.
It's very
So you
balanced.
could justify it, right?
Very balanced.
Right, and that's exactly, it was balanced. So
Yeah.
to me, that's a good documentary. When I went to college and in film class, we were told, if you're making a documentary, you have to show both sides. And then Michael Moore comes out. And I was like, they're calling that a documentary? He's only showing one side. He's literally omitting to make his points. And he's heralded as a, great filmmaker. That always bothered me because that's not the way I learned how to make a documentary. You got to show both sides. So whatever. It was balanced, exactly.
It showed her good side and her not so good side.
Right. And this one film, one critic, the one really negative review from NPR station in LA, Charles Solomon said, an overproduced Valentine to somebody you wouldn't want to give one to.
On the other hand,
Yes.
when she went to prison, we know that prison is supposed to be rehabilitation. But it's not, it's mainly punishment.
That's what she said too. Yeah.
But she came out a much better person. She was human in prison. She related to people she would normally never relate to. And then she came out and reinvented herself with a
Yes.
younger generation.
Yes.
Modern generation. That wasn't Martha's story. So I thought that part was quite revealing. I gave her credit for that.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. Yes.
The one thing that surprised me, well, not surprised me considering her background, she had a boyfriend. And the boyfriend, when she went into jail, abandoned her. And yet she went back to him. So that's a contradiction. Here she's a perfectionist, but she really settled.
It's a good point.
Because I
She
think
didn't
there
have
was a
temptation,
part of her
yeah.
that didn't have high enough self-esteem because of the way
Exactly.
she was brought up. And then to find out she's lying in bed with her boyfriend and he says, hey, I'm getting married.
Yeah. That was the worst. Right.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, she was just like, there's a part of her that, as tough as she is, there's a pathetic side to her.
Fragile.
Yeah, that's not a good.
Mean that guy
He's
was.
in bed with her.
Right.
And said,
How could you say it at that time?
That's crazy.
Terrible human being.
Right.
Should have waited for breakfast.
Mean, that's.
Yes, Bart.
I'm so struck by
That's a mean person
the
getting
amount, the
back.
amount of emotion
Well,
in this group about her. I mean, there's so much. It was amazing to me, just talking about, I don't know if it's expectation, I don't know what it is, but I don't think I've heard this group be so animated and so involved about this person, a person. And we've always dealt with fiction, so maybe that's one of the things. But I gotta say one thing, nobody has brought up the roast, which I think is one of the funniest.
Great point.
the funniest
Yes.
thing. I fell in love with her at that moment.
Yeah.
That's
She
like,
was
oh my
fabulous.
God, just the funniest person I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the one thing that bothered me, the only thing that bothered me, I was wondering, why didn't they talk about who wrote those jokes for her?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Well, she did a great job delivering, but somebody wrote them. I wanted to know who did that. That was great.
But again, just the amount, just so much emotion coming out in this room about this woman.
Yeah.
But she was self-deprecating too.
Yes.
She was willing to get up there and talk about her time in prison and.
Right, but
You know?
and good for her daughter telling her, by the way, Mom, they're gonna roast you too.
Right.
She's like, oh, okay, but she said she didn't think it would be that bad, and it
Yeah.
was pretty bad,
She
pretty
did
harsh.
very well publicly.
But she nailed everybody who roasted her. She got them back.
She did.
Yeah, she did good.
I would have liked to know more about her relationship with her daughter, because I think weren't there times where it was not such a good relationship?
I'm not sure it still is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
so
it was
I would
definitely
like to-
strained, yeah.
And well, maybe one of the reasons they didn't include it is because.
No, her daughter was in it a little. But she was very
I mean,
low, but
she
she was
was
complaining
there
about the grandkids not being in.
Yeah, but when she was released from prison, her daughter came.
Yes.
To be with her.
Yep.
I mean,
And she
not everybody
visited
has
her
a
in
great
prison,
relationship
too.
with their mother.
Talked about
I
that.
don't.
What, Ann?
The daughter visited her. in
Yes, she
prison.
did. That's right. Yep. She did more than once. So, yeah. Yeah.
To
Exactly.
Bart's point, I think we love gossip.
Well, but yeah, but the roast was incredible. It ended up being like in hindsight, like a master stroke to get her back, being relevant again.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of really resuscitated her career, and her association with Snoop, really, that helped both their careers. You can't ignore the fact that helped him too. That helped get him mainstream. Like her, which I wanted to mention this too, Kmart, yes, Kmart, right? So, and she handled those questions pretty well when people were saying, okay, but why'd you pick Kmart, you know? And she said, because everyone can shop there.
And everyone deserves beauty.
Right, everyone should have the chance to have that kind of stuff.
Where is Kmart today?
Well, I don't think that is anything to do with
No,
her.
but at the time,
I mean,
it was huge for her and for Kmart. It was a great thing, yeah. Okay, anyone have anything else? Yes, Red.
We haven't been here for a while, and I just gotta say, this is the best group I've ever
Yeah.
been. You guys, and the comments coming out of everybody's mouth there tonight have been outstanding. I'm just really enjoying you all. Thank you.
Me too, me too. All right, well, thank you, guys. We'll wrap it up. So, thank you. So, yeah, email me your suggestions for next time.